Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to get past the headlines, really digging into finance and economics.
Right.
Today, we're tackling concentration, economic concentration, specifically in the U.S. It's accelerating, and we want to look at what that means for, the whole system's stability.
hmm We've been looking at a lot of data, a lot of sources on wealth, income, production, investment too.
And it all points in one direction. It makes that old quote, nearly 50 years old now, feel very current. All the gold in California is in a bank in the middle of Beverly Hills in somebody else's name.
Yeah, Larry Gatlin, 1979. It really sets the stage for this deep dive. We're looking at how the U.S. plays this game of concentration, as you said, across the whole economy.
But it's not just about who has more money, is it?
No, not at all. The key thing we're analyzing is the structural vulnerability that comes out of this. How fragile does the whole system become?
Right. Okay, so before we get into the big numbers, let's just quickly clarify something fundamental. People often mix up wealth and income. What's the key difference we need to keep in mind here?
It's pretty simple, really. Think flow versus stock.
Okay.
Income is the flow. It's the money coming in over time, your paycheck, rent you collect, that kind of thing.
What pays the bills month to month?
Exactly. Wealth, on the other hand, is the stock. It's the total value of everything you own: house, investments, patents, equipment, you name it, minus everything you owe. Liabilities.
So income is what you earn, but wealth is what sticks around, what can grow on its own, maybe.
Precisely. It's that enduring capital, the stuff that can generate more capital.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this story of concentration really takes off.
Okay, so let's look at that stock, the wealth data. You are looking at figures from Q2 2025.
Yes, and the picture they paint is, well, pretty extraordinary. Stark, really.
Let's get straight to it then. What are the headline numbers?
All right, the top 10% of U.S. households, they held two-thirds of the nation's wealth. That's 66.7%.
Two-thirds. Wow. Okay, so what about everyone else? The bottom half.
The bottom 50% of the U.S. population, their share, collectively, was just 2.5% of the total national wealth.
2.5%. That's a massive difference. More than just a gap. Like you said, it's a gulf.
It really is. And it gets even clearer when you look at what they own, the type of assets.
Ah, so it's not just the amount, but the kind of wealth. What's the difference there?
It's a fundamental divergence. If you look at the very top, the wealthiest 1%, their wealth is overwhelmingly central in things like corporate stocks, mutual funds, owning private businesses.
Assets that tend to grow in value generate returns.
Exactly. Capital-generating assets. Now, compare that to the bottom 50%. They're limited wealth. It's almost all tied up in their house real estate and, durable consumer goods.
Stuff like refrigerators, cars.
Right. Things you need, absolutely, but they don't typically appreciate much. They might even depreciate. They're not financial engines in the same way.
And debt plays a big role too, doesn't it? Liabilities eating into that net wealth.
Absolutely. For the bottom 50%, a big chunk of what they owe is often home mortgages, sure, but also consumer credit card debt.
Things that carry high interest rates.
Whereas the sources show the top 10% are much less likely to be carrying that kind of consumer debt. If they have debt, it's more often linked to investments or big purchases.
So it reinforces the trend. Wealth grows faster at the top with appreciating assets, while the bottom half deals with depreciating assets and higher interest debt.
It's a cycle. It makes you understand that line from F. Scott Fitzgerald nearly 100 years ago now in The Rich Boy.
Let me tell you about the rich. They are different from you and me.
Yeah. Their whole financial structure is just different, built for acceleration, you could say.
And that structure, that difference, leads right into the next piece.
Yeah.
Income, the flow.
Right. If wealth is the stock, income is about how the economic pie gets sliced up each year.
We're talking about national income here. Just quickly, what does that include?
Basically, it's the total earnings of everyone in the country, individuals and businesses. Wages, profits, rent, taxes, minus subsidies, the works. And economists often split it into two main shares.
The share going to capital owners, investors, and the share going to labor workers' wages.
Exactly. And historically, that split was seen as surprisingly stable. Keynes wrote about it back in 1939. He thought it was remarkable that labor consistently got around, say, 75% of national income in the early 20th century.
That stability seems like ancient history now, though. What's happened since?
Well, since about the 1980s, that historical stability has broken down. In the U.S. and many other developed countries, labor's share has been falling. Researchers have called the drop in the wage part specifically remarkable.
And it's not just a slow drift downwards?
No, the sources show it's accelerated. A McKinsey Global Institute report from 2019 found something pretty shocking.
What was that?
Three-quarters, 75% of the entire decline in labor share since way back in 1947 has actually happened just since the year 2000.
Wow. So most of the shift has happened in our lifetimes, really.
In the last couple of decades, yes. It's been quite dramatic.
Okay, so why? What's driving this shift away from labor? Is it just robots taking jobs?
That's part of it, but it's more complex. Yes, you have capital machines, software substituting for labor because it's cheaper or more efficient for certain tasks,
Okay.
but you also have automation complementing labor. Think of tools that make existing workers more productive, but often require higher skills. That can widen the gap between high-wage and low-wage workers.
And there's another factor, too.
Globalization and related shifts in sort of policy and union strength. It's generally weakened the bargaining power of labor. Capital can move across borders easily. Workers, not so much.
But hang on, isn't there an upside to this? I mean, more automation, more global trade, doesn't that create efficiencies? Cheaper goods, new services, maybe the smaller slice for labor is just the trade-off for, a more productive economy overall.
That's a really important question, and it gets to the heart of the debate. Yes, there are definitely efficiency gains. Technology and globalization do make the overall economy potentially larger.
Right.
But the issue is how those gains are distributed. When labor's share shrinks, that extra income primarily flows to the owners of capital.
Which increases inequality.
It increases inequality, yes, and it can actually slow down overall income growth for the majority of households. If people aren't earning more, they can't spend more.
So it can create a drag on consumer demand down the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You end up with the owners of capital getting a bigger and bigger piece of the pie, while the purchasing power of the average worker stagnates or declines. It shifts power.
Okay, so we've seen concentration in wealth and a shift in income away from labor. What about the actual structure of industries, production itself?
Yeah, the sources make it clear that concentration is rampant here too. In many U.S. industries, just a handful of very large firms dominate everything: production, sales, market access.
Which sectors are most concentrated?
The real heavyweights are finance, healthcare, and technology. These aren't just big companies. They often shape the market environment, influence prices, and make it really hard for new competitors to get a foothold.
Do we have some examples? Because sometimes it feels abstract.
Oh, definitely. Think about banking. Just 4 huge commercial banks hold over half of all U.S. banking assets.
Half the assets in 4 banks. Okay.
Or look at how drugs get distributed.
Mm-hmm.
The entire drug and cosmetic wholesaling sector, worth over $1 trillion, is basically controlled by 3 national firms.
3 companies handle most of the medicine distribution.
And telecommunications. Your mobile phone service is almost entirely Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile.
It really does feel like a lock-in sometimes. Why is it so hard for smaller companies to break through against these giants?
There are a few key reasons they have such enduring power. One is regulation. Sometimes rules, intentionally or not, make it easier for large established players.
Sure.
Another is economies of scale. The giants can just produce or operate so much more cheaply than a startup.
Makes sense.
And then, especially in tech, you have powerful network effects. The more people use Facebook or Google, the more valuable it becomes, making it almost impossible for a new network to compete.
Like a moat around their business.
Exactly. And what's really concerning is that this concentration hasn't slowed down.
Yeah.
It seems to have actually accelerated since around 2015.
Oh.
Mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
The big fish just keep buying the smaller, innovative ones, especially in tech, media, and finance.
Okay, so production is concentrated. Now, connect this back to that idea of structural vulnerability. How does this industrial concentration make the whole economy more fragile?
It ties directly into consumption. Consumption drives about 2/3 of the U.S. economy, right? U.S. GDP.
Right, consumer spending is huge.
So if production is concentrated, it means the benefits of that production, profits, high-end salaries, also become concentrated. And that shapes who does the spending.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Look at the spending data from 2024. Households in just the top 10% of income making roughly $250,000 or more, they accounted for nearly half of all consumer spending in the country.
Half the spending from just 10% of households.
Yeah. And think about the instability that creates. The sources highlighted changes between 2023 and 2024. Those high earners, their spending jumped 12%, way more than inflation.
Okay. And middle-class households.
Their spending actually fell. It contracted.
So the economy's growth is becoming increasingly reliant on the spending habits of the wealthiest slice.
That's the core risk. Our analysis indicates something like 34.7%, over a third of the entire U.S. GDP, depends on the spending decisions of less than 10% of its households.
That sounds incredibly precarious.
It is. If anything happens to significantly impact that top group's ability or willingness to spend, a market crash, a change in sentiment, anything, the ripple effect could be enormous. A major blow to the whole economy. That dependency is structural vulnerability.
So the concentration theme continues right into investment markets. This isn't exactly new, though, is it? Markets have always had dominant players.
Not new at all. But the nature of the concentration changes over time. Our sources trace this back almost 2 centuries. It's fascinating to see which sectors held the power.
Walk us through that briefly.
Well, very early on, 1790s to 1840s, it was the big banks, like the first and second banks of the United States.
Yeah.
Then came the railroads. Mid-19th century, the top 10 companies were basically transport companies.
Yeah.
Railroads held maybe 20% of the market back in 1853.
Then industry took over.
Right, late 19th, early 20th century.
Mm.
Think Standard Oil, at one point around 1900, it was maybe 9% of the entire market by itself.
Wow. Then we get into the mid-20th century giants?
Yep, the post-war era, up to the 60s or so, the so-called Magnificent Seven of that time. AT&T, GM, IBM, Standard Oil, again in a different form, GE, DuPont, U.S. Steel, real industrial powerhouses.
But then things shifted. Didn't concentration decrease for a while?
It did. There's a period sort of from the mid-60s into the early 90s where things became less concentrated. The breakup of AT&T was a big part of that, plus other efficiencies. Market concentration actually hit a historic low in 1993, below 16%.
But that didn't last.
Not at all. That decentralized moment seems like a blip now.
Yeah.
We are firmly, deeply back into an era of high concentration, but this time it's dominated by technology.
The mega caps, the FAANGs, plus others.
Exactly. Meta, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, Alphabet, and now NVIDIA is definitely in that group. All of them have market caps over $1 trillion.
It's hard to even grasp those numbers. Apple's journey alone is incredible.
It really is. They hit $1 trillion market cap in 2018, $2 trillion just 2 years later in 2020, and then $3 trillion in 2023. Remember, the first company ever to reach $1 billion did so only about 100 years ago.
The speed is just staggering.
And recent events like the pandemic boosting work-from-home tech, and now the huge excitement around artificial intelligence, it's just poured fuel on the fire for these specific companies.
And this isn't just about stock prices being high, right? It reflects real economic clout.
Oh, absolutely. This might be the single most striking statistic we found regarding current concentration. If you look at the S&P 500 index of 500 of the largest U.S. companies,
Yes.
the top 10 companies within that index now generate approximately 70% on 70% of the total economic profit of the entire index.
70% of the profit from just 10 companies out of 500.
Correct. The concentration of actual profit generation is immense. It means the fortunes of a vast swath of the market and the broader economy are incredibly tied to the performance and decisions of a tiny number of firms and their leaders.
That level of economic power, it must have other consequences.
And that's the final crucial connection. This immense economic influence that these leading tech companies in particular wield, it can be, and often is, translated directly into political power.
Shaping regulations, taxes.
Exactly. Influencing the rules of the game in ways that can reinforce their dominant position. It connects everything wealth, income shares, market structure, and ultimately political influence. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, let's try to pull all these threads together. What we've seen in this deep dive is concentration happening everywhere, simultaneously.
Yeah, it's not just one isolated trend. It's wealth concentrating at the very top.
It's labor getting a shrinking share of the income pie.
It's a few giant companies dominating production in key industries.
It's the entire economy becoming overly reliant on spending by the wealthiest households.
And finally, it's investment returns and market profits consolidating in the hands of a select few, mostly tech, corporations.
So the big takeaway for you listening isn't just about inequality, though that's part of it. It's really about systemic fragility, isn't it?
That's the core message from the sources, yes. Look, capital availability and innovation are vital for the U.S. economy. Efficiency gains from scale can be good. But the trend is clear. Concentration is accelerating, driven by these deep structural factors, network effects, automation, regulatory capture, M&A activity.
And we've ended up with a structure that leans very heavily on a very small number of companies and a very small percentage of households.
Right, which leaves us with a critical question for you to think about. We see the benefits of efficiency, maybe, but where is the breaking point?
The point where those benefits are completely overshadowed by the risk.
Exactly. At what point does the sheer vulnerability created by having, say, 70% of market profit generated by just 10 companies? At what point does that risk become too great for the whole system?
It offers huge rewards for some, but it seems to be building a huge centralized risk for everyone else, something to definitely keep an eye on.